Bam! All right, so we're on episode 47. All right, so
47.
the topic we got today. So we got a little bit of a series. One of them, I'm gonna put it on the screen. Uh, there we go. Okay, so um, it's not every villain deserves a redemption arc. There's a reason why they are villains. Yeah, and we'll go from there, and then if it segues into other topics, we'll mention that as we go. But yeah, sure. I like that. I like that. That really sparked the interest in me when I saw that meme, and like I was thinking about how like for me immediately, even though I enjoyed the Joker movie or Joker, right?
The
Right.
Killing
Okay.
Joke.
Right.
Like
Well, I
Joker
mean,
in general.
Killing
Like the
Joke is
character.
like a
Yeah.
good one too, but the Joker, but no more recently the
The Walking Phoenix.
Oh, the
yeah
movie. Yeah.
the movie. So
Yeah.
and it made me think
Taxi
about that.
Driver too, but not as
Right,
good.
but
What
but
was that?
Joker.
Yeah,
um,
it's just Taxi Driver the sequel, but
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
or it's more like the remake of Taxi Driver that you would expect.
a new way of doing remakes is now you take the core of a old film and you just jumble it with the bubble wrapping of
Yeah,
Yeah.
of the regifting it, uh,
yeah,
Yeah, it's Taxi
essentially.
Driver without the subtlety.
Right,
yeah.
The clown make.
with clown, yes, with clown
We're
makeup
And
still-
and
and also like the ending is similar to like the ending of Taxi Driver, where he's like sort of revered as a hero, but it's not done as well as But I
Well,
mean,
that's
again, it's nothing in that movie to me anyway is done particularly well. I didn't hate the movie or anything, but it's just like I don't. I felt like it was just it didn't need to happen, and
I mean,
I felt like it was okay, but I didn't think it was like a 10 out of 10 the way so many people came out of the theater. Like when people were talking about it, like it was just like it's like the Dark Knight, man. It's just like it's amazing, and I'm like okay, and then I watched it, and I'm just like, and this is fine. Like there's some good stuff here, but it's it's not special to me.
it's the kind of thing where like,
mm,
if you like, you just pay attention to the script, you can tell that you know, pretty much 70% of the movie is just walking Phoenix's, um, like knocking it out of the park with his acting. Like it's his
Oh
acting
yeah,
that really
oh
lifts
yeah,
up the
yeah,
film.
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because
I definitely agree with that.
because the
It's
most. Go
I
ahead.
think I think even they realized too that I'm not gonna say that is an amazing movie because they were just trying to make a film. Like I don't think it was like anything that they were trying to like break the industry or anything. They just wanted to do a character study, and it's just
Yeah,
more of like a learning situation for themselves, and then everybody else is just kind of gassing it up like
Yeah,
way further than necessary. I think at the same
I
time too,
definitely
it's
really
like
liked it. I mean,
I think
Apollo has his opinion and he's wrong, and I hate him for that. But,
but
but no,
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 like
I mean,
seriously
I
though.
feel like
it
people
makes
are
sense.
gassing up because they like the Joker as a character, and
Right.
like if it had not been the Joker, and if it had just been some random guy who does all this, and it hadn't been associated with Batman at all, I think people wouldn't like it nearly as much.
Yeah, I feel like that's like what like the feeling I was getting from like the outside. If you just like are in a vacuum, that movie is fantastic, but like having the other aspects to it being connected did definitely influence how people like viewed that film, which, okay, it's fine. You can't stop it, right? Like, but in that thing too, like, I didn't feel like that did have much of redemption. I think it's kind of confusing, like how people relate to the thing is that, like, they think it's them redeeming that
Huh?
character at all, and I think it's
Really?
like,
I was gonna
no,
say
like,
no, I
yeah,
I
wouldn't
didn't see
interpret
that
that at
at
all. Yeah,
all. Like
like no,
that's,
like
I
that's
mean,
the problem. There's some people that like there's this like sense of like they think that they solely blame the system in the sense that
right,
it
right.
caused him to be the way he was, which is like I'm pretty sure even the writer, director, and the actor himself is like, well, he made the choice to do these things. The
Right,
system was
it's
just
sort of like the socioeconomic environment is
yeah,
certainly a factor, but
a
it's like
factor,
it
but
just
not
allowed him to thrive, honestly, by
exactly.
being his true self. Like, and he was able to work in that chaotic environment. You know?
Right. I
Yeah,
think that's like the
people.
bigger message. It's like it's the fact that we are not holding ourselves accountable for the actions that we do that may cause these effects. Not saying that we should completely 100% like blame like people like, "Oh yeah, you're the direct result of that guy shooting the other dude because you gave him the bullet," or like it's kind of that's like a little too extreme, right? But know the fact that like, oh, you're capable of like you're just feeding the worst situation that could eventually happen. But like,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, but on the other hand, fuck Randall though, right? I mean,
Fuck, Randall.
Oh my god. But
Wait, who was Randall?
uh at Sims, right? You reference what are you referencing? D. I don't want to say it and
referencing the
then
guy who sold him the gun. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
Oh
saying.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
good
yeah,
point. Good point.
yeah. um but yeah, like there's also the other thing too that to stray away less from the movie. Yeah, there's the Killing Joke, great comic, love it. It's amazing.
Terrible movie interpretation. Like
Yeah,
the
the
animated
animated
version.
one was not very good. Definitely, yeah. It's just not meant for being animated
Yeah.
at this, especially in that kind of way that they set it up. But that's like a learning curve. I think a lot of people like should learn lessons from that. But
The
basically, the
Killing Joke is
redemption
a
part.
good. I was gonna say the Killing Joke is a perfect example of a media that in which you know the main character, our protagonist is definitely the Joker, the bad guy, the what would typically be the antagonist, and one that does not go in any way to like redeem that character.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if anything, it just condemns him more. Like you just
Oh
see
yeah.
like the full
Yeah.
depravity of this of who he is.
Yeah, yeah. So like the thing is like there's these moments of like we understand like a little bit about his past, but it's not that it's. I'm not saying that's a redemption arc. Rather that it I think it to some level people like misconstrue the fact that he's just a victim of this, but that's
Yeah,
not necessarily the case. But I think like there's gonna be characters that like they gain in popularity and then they become a good guy later. It's like not does not necessarily mean that that should happen for those characters. Like you have other characters that are doing that where it's like they were previously a villain and then they become a good guy later. I mean, like Marvel does that with Loki. Basically, he's practically like he was started off as a villain and
Yeah.
then they have this whole redemption aspects to him. And then
But now he's back to normal Loki.
yeah, yeah.
'Cause we have Loki right after Avengers for the new series, and it's just like, what? Like, I guess are we gonna do that again, or are we gonna have
yeah.
a new arc where he just decides to fully commit to being a villain, or?
Right. Yeah, like I don't know. It's like, do we
I'm
even
sick.
need
I'm
it?
sick of that character. I'm so honestly.
You stick to that character. But we all like Tom Hiddleston.
I
Yeah,
like
I
the
like the
character
actor.
and I like the actor, but I was really happy like when
That he
he
was
died
dead.
at the end of at the beginning of Infinity War. Like I
Right.
thought that was a perfect end to his arc, and it was
Yeah.
just like, oh well, fuck it, let's just he's back. He took the
He's back
stone
again.
and now he's time traveled. It's just like, come on.
It's
Yeah,
Boba
yeah.
Fett all over to me in a way, where like in the sense that that character was pretty much brought back into the limelight simply because he was popular rather than because
Hmm.
it was a good reason to bring it back.
Yeah, pretty
Boba
much.
Fett's actually a good one though, because like he's kind of like, I mean, he's always he's a villain, but obviously over the years he's sort of become something of an anti-hero, and then in the second season of Mandalorian, he's more of an anti-hero than anything, I guess. But like, I like that. I mean, like, obviously at the end, spoilers for season 2 for anybody who might be listening to this
Who's
of
been
that
living under a
show.
rock.
That like
Go for it. Just go full spoiler. Who cares?
Are you there?
Oh no, I think we
Uh-oh.
lost him. I think Boba Fett got him.
Okay, he's gonna be like the new king of the underworld, which is fitting, right? Like Boba Fett's not a character who should be who you sympathize with. He's a character who like has a singular mission that is all his own, and you just want to see him fulfill that mission, whether it's delivering a bounty or becoming the king of the underworld or getting his armor back. Like he's not a character
Right.
who you like cry for. He's a character who you root for being a badass and getting what he wants, even if what he wants is not the right thing.
Right.
And I think characters like that are important because, like, you don't have to sympathize or empathize with the protagonist. It's like not all protagonists have to be that. There's so many different shapes that they can take on. So that was I think Boba Fett is kind of a good one for like. He doesn't need to be redeemed for his actions. Like he does good things, he does bad things, but he operates in that criminal underworld and he does it well. Like he doesn't need to be redeemed. He doesn't want to be, and that's totally fine. Like,
It's like
you know,
unapologetic, basically.
yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, it works better for his character. It makes him a better character.
Right.
Which in the end, to me, is always that's always the better thing. Like I don't
Right.
care. Like, you know, it should always be about the character first and foremost.
Right.
Which is why Kylo Ren, who is the one that I picked, doesn't work at all.
Right. Doesn't need
you know,
that.
and that,
yeah.
because you know, at the end, despite how I feel about The Last Jedi and especially Rise of the Skywalker, and I've talked about this before, so I won't harp on it too long. But like
Academy Award-winning Rise of the Skywalker.
Yeah, but like Kylo Ren is like, you know, I didn't like The Last Jedi, but one of the few things I did like was how he just fully committed to being evil at the end. Like he just fully went into it, fully accepted it, and which made him more powerful. It made him sort of become the
obviously that we needed.
Yeah, he was that we needed and that he wanted to be and that he was maybe meant to be. And I liked that. And then they just totally backpedaled in Rise of the Skywalker and made him they made us try to sympathize with him. It didn't work with me. Like I was like, this isn't tracking with his previous behavior. Like it's with him, and he just has this 180-degree turn. And by the end of Rise of the Skywalker, he's, I guess, a hero. Like I guess he's been redeemed, but
I mean,
it wasn't earned at all. Like
what's a little casual? And plus, I mean, this is a man who killed billions of people in those
billions of people, killed his own father, you know, like, I mean, like, he wanted to be evil. Like, that, and that was fine. Like, I liked that. Like, and it, you know, and it was almost sort of like basically doing what they were trying to do with Anakin in the prequels, but doing it better for a while, where it was like, okay, he's like this dude who's, you know, he hasn't completed his training yet in Force Awakens, and like he lashes out with all this angst and stuff, and you know, he chokes people just because he's angry, and he smashes up all this shit.
God, Dad, you just don't understand me.
Yeah, but he's not like a whiny bitch the way Anakin was. So it feels like it's a cool part of his character that he's lashing out like that. Like when Anakin kills the Sand People in Episode 2, that's cool. Like I get that. Like I understand that. Like, okay, they kept his mother as a slave and then they killed her. Okay, why wouldn't he kill them? All right, but then it just totally is that completely sort of diluted by the fact that the next scene is him crying to Padme about his actions. And it's like, I get it, but it doesn't work with that character in that situation. It just makes him seem whiny. And then the same thing happens in Episode 3, where he's like, I shouldn't do this. And then, you know, but he's like conflicted, but then he does all these terrible things, and then he's like killing kids and stuff, and it's just like,
it's like literally 5 minutes later, he's
like I'm sorry, like
we have to steal the toys.
yeah, exactly. It's just like
don't think of it as killing. It's a late term abortion.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Like, you know, again, with so many things in the prequels, it just wasn't.
didn't
the main
track.
idea is
It didn't.
the main
It was
idea
too
is fine,
extreme.
but the writing is totally off. Whereas I felt with Kylo Ren in Force Awakens and then Last Jedi, like, you know, the writing was more on point for that character. And then it was just totally destroyed with Rise of the Skywalker,
Right.
where
It's the jump the shark
the
situation.
end of his story. I mean, in a way, I mean, like it, but
You know
like
something that
it's
there's like interesting
I don't know
parallel
that
between both Kylo and Joker and their movies in that you're right. Like, you know, the
they're both
characters like actually
bad
just
movies.
they're both bad movies. They had great cinematography, but no, and the fact that
That's
like, you know,
true.
the characters, you know, you don't necessarily have to sympathize with the characters. You don't have to, you know, feel bad for them, but you definitely can empathize. You can definitely understand where they're, where they're coming from, and where
Sure,
they're
yeah,
going, and you understand that, like, in the at the end of the day, like, the stories were about finding themselves. It's just that, the person who were
no,
themselves all
yeah.
along were fucking evil.
No, 100%. I mean, that I think exactly what you just said, but like sort of delineating between sympathy and empathy is important because I think that's what something like Game of Thrones does so well, where it's like you have good people and you have a lot of bad people, and you can empathize with probably every main character at least for a second, like at least for a few seconds, you can empathize with that character. Like somebody like
the Hound.
Yeah, the Hound's great. Somebody like Theon, I think, is one of the best examples because, like, he's always like, even before he betrays the Starks and stuff, like, he's always an asshole. Like, he's always a piece of shit. But then he goes further and he's like, he's killing again. He's killing kids and he's he's killing
Where you
like
coming from?
yeah, he's killing his people who like he's known his whole life and who's raised him and taught him swordplay and all this stuff. He's just sort of killing them to show how masculine he is. And then he gets, taken by Ramsay and tortured. And even when you see him as Reek later on, there's some sympathy there for sure. But at the same time, you're like, oh man, this guy definitely got what he deserved. But at the same time, even when he's doing all that horrible shit, like, you can empathize with where he's coming from because his father basically disowns him. And he obviously there was a whole situation with him being the ward of Ned Stark. And it was that whole thing about him being a hostage was like, they had to do it to like basically survive. Like the Iron Islands had to give him to Ned Stark to survive in the war. But like for him, that was like, oh, my father gave me away. He doesn't care. He doesn't love me, and Ned Stark did. But now this chance to sort of redeem myself in the eyes of my father, like I'm gonna do it, even if it means betraying everyone I've ever known and everything, and this person, Robb Stark, who I think of as a brother. And even if we don't agree with that, we can understand where he's coming from, and that's kind of the thing where it was
important with the story.
Yeah.
That we need to keep some sort of consistency, that we understand why they made these choices. And that's the thing, like
exactly.
the jump the shark reference, I was just like, why did you make this choice? Like, I understand what you're saying to me, but I don't understand how that tracks from previous. It's just a big giant blip, you know what I mean? Like a big giant, like, whoop, we skipped it. We skipped that part where they gradually understood why they made these choices. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And then and that's the thing about some villains that just don't need that kind of twist of like, just because we like them doesn't mean that they should fundamentally change their character, which is like a perfect example, actually, with Kylo Ren being, oh, he's becoming more popular and blah, 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 let's just stick with the part that he's like redeeming himself. Like, nah, I think that doesn't work well with the character right now. It's gone too far. If you're gonna do that, like, we need more time to like influence those choices.
And then padding it out with like the contrived love story with Rey was just like sort of the final straw with me, where I was just like, I understand they have a connection. That doesn't mean they need to bang. Like, it's okay if they're not like a couple. Like, it would have worked better if they weren't. Like,
Yeah.
and it's it's just so forced, man.
Honestly,
so forced.
that was one of my favorite things about watching that movie in the movie theaters, because I felt like the entire audience had the exact same reaction when they kissed.
Yeah.
Everyone's
The
like,
same
Yeah.
cringe.
the same
Nobody
groan of
was
like,
like, yeah, it happened. I
Like,
wanted this.
yeah,
It was like,
yeah.
no,
It's like,
nobody
no,
shipped them. Like,
no,
nobody
no.
wanted this.
It's like watching two.
Rainbow ship them,
It's like
although they
watching
don't count as
siblings
people.
kiss. It's like, no, that's just wrong.
yeah. Like they wanted to recreate the fact that, oh yeah, Leia and Luke fucking kissed. I'm like, come on, dude, really?
Yeah, let's
It-
recreate that.
Let's
Like,
recreate that.
All
Great.
right.
That's so stupid.
Instead,
That's so
that's
stupid.
the one thing we need more of in Star Wars.
Right.
You
I
know, I
think
think
that's
that
the
there's a
thing
natural.
with Vader that okay, honestly, like the movies, in terms of Vader, him having that relation to redemption, or him to like understand his background to lead up to who he is now, just did not feel great. Like watching the animation like made any kind of justification for me for Vader being the way that he is, because it's like it then
Oh,
tracked
yeah.
better, because
Yeah.
then I understood like, this is war. Like
Right. Yeah.
like they're really making some hard choices, and having Ahsoka Tano being the surrogate of kind of say the audience, in the sense that she is the one that casted doubt in the Jedi Order, in which of the sect that he's kind of just so devout to, and then it's just like it added this seed of doubt, and Palpatine twisting that shit from the animation was like more in line with the character that I know in the original episodes 4 through 6, being just a relentless fucking killing machine. Like, how do you go from a fucking kid that's like uh doing races and shit like that, and being a kid, to being the most lethal lethal force in all of the galaxy? Like, it's so hard to paint that picture in just 3 movies with characters that we didn't need to spend more time with, that didn't add to his character. I just like really wish that they had somebody like Ahsoka Tano like staying with him, including Obi-Wan, kind of giving him conflict between choices that he had to make. It's yeah, like it's like a retroactive redemption. That's what it felt like when watching episodes. Like, if you're seeing episodes 4 through 6 and then you watch episodes 1 through 3 in that order, then it's like a retroactive kind of redemption of understanding where he come from, or something that you can sympathize with him. But for me,
Right.
it just didn't work. It didn't work so
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Right, like that. There's the point that like the prequels kind of recontextualize the original, trilogy, and that the entire like 6 episode saga does become the redemption, the fall and then the redemption arc of Darth Vader.
Right.
But it just doesn't quite jive with you. Like, it just doesn't.
Yeah, just for me, it just didn't work out. I do appreciate somebody's interpretation. I think one thing that of somebody's interpretation of Vader and Anakin was that, which I like. I love the concept. Maybe didn't execute too well because it really didn't like make sense to me. Was that that Vader, that Obi-Wan saying that Vader and Anakin are actually 2 separate people made more sense to me now that I see that in that perspective. Like, keeping that in mind, thinking about how he goes from being Anakin to Vader, and how he's now being encased, and that the irony of his destiny, that him saying that this is the guy that's going to bring the Force in balance. And then I realize that by seeing these movies, I realize, oh, it wasn't really Luke. Vader actually did do. He actually, well, not Vader, but Anakin really did bring balance to the Force, in the sense that he eventually realized his ways and quote unquote, of course, not including Palpatine, he is back, but he quote unquote killed Palpatine by throwing him
Right.
off. So
He destroyed the Sith, and by killing Palpatine, because of the rule of two, there were only two of them. He killed Palpatine, and in doing that, he killed himself. Right. So
right,
he did eliminate the Sith, as the prophecy had said.
right, which is like a great, like, that makes sense in terms of like the whole concept, and it made more sense of like how like it led to the assumption that Vader and Anakin are treated as separate people. Um, and if I just feel like if I were to like go back, I would have
And
really
that
made
redemption, but then that the redemption arc, I feel, works because it isn't about um, Darth Vader's, character, going through a whole arc. It's about it's
it's
about
about
his son
Anakin.
Luke. Yeah, it's about his son Luke, the one who,
Well, yeah,
who has a whole arc of, of going from like, being doing the whole, hero's journey, being, the reluctant hero to understanding, to being a precocious, child trying to throw himself into the um into finding his father, figuring out that he's afraid of him, and then coming back and understanding that it's not just about, defeating him in a physical contest, but rather defeating him in a in an ideological and a sort of a spiritual way, in the sense that
mm,
he no longer has to, he understands that he no longer has to
yeah,
fight in order to actually win. He
yeah.
has to,
That's
win hearts and minds.
that's the cool thing about it. Like, this is the thing about like what this is to me in this sense, redemption worked. That
Oh
if
yeah.
you think about maybe if you had included more aspects of the extended universe in the books and the comics, then you then
Yeah.
understood that, oh, is like Anakin and Vader, as much as the world and the universe treats them as separate people, Luke was the only one that treated him, oh no, it's Anakin in there, he's just covered up,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then so I'm gonna go and get my I'm going to revive my father. And he was the only one,
Right.
despite everything against him, saying like, no, that fucker is gonna kill you. Like, like
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
ain't your father no more. Like that's like the message. And not even Obi-Wan knew what to do. He's like, like I don't know what to say. Like, in a
Yeah.
sense, Vader and Anakin are two separate people, because the person I saw, that wasn't Anakin, right? Like, so like it gives me goosebumps thinking about that, and makes me think about like, man, like really could have just like slimmed down episodes 1 through 3 in such a way that really like nailed that the fact that Anakin is struggling with what he thinks is two alter egos, but really it's just him, and that he's not separating it well enough, or not separating it, but he's separating it too much, where he's like, I am no longer Anakin, I am this other entity, and then it's just it's kind of it's really cool just thinking of it that way, and it kind of recontextualize a lot of the things that happen currently, like in the movies and then some of the comics and all that stuff, that makes me think of like, it excites me to enjoy Vader more, in the fact that the redemption worked in the way that they said, that he would bring balance. And it's like, man, that's actually pretty cool, because like then the destiny aspect actually came true, right? Like, it's not as hokey as just like, oh, we're just making these assumptions.
I mean, like, the prophecy works just because it turned out to be like first the downfall of the Jedi, and then it brought back redemption in the later arc.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Like
those
it,
Jedi
like
just really didn't think it through. Why would you bring balance to, you know, to having, thousands of Jedi's, to just having two, just like the other guys? Like, probably not a good arc. Maybe think
right.
it through, Jedi's.
Yeah. Does anybody else have like their thoughts of like characters that have like a like they didn't need a redemption, or even the opposite, like this was like actually worth wild redemption, something that made it more interesting for the character, or even like I could swear there's probably like some movies or shows that like the villain is a villain all the way up until the end until he does one act that kind of redeems them in the longer run. Like I could swear there was some things like that, but I can't think of anything right now.
I mean, I can think of this is kind of outside of the sphere of what we usually discuss, but that's one of my that's one of the reasons why I don't like some of the new um, like remakes that Disney does. Beginning with, for example,
Oh yeah.
the movie Maleficent. You know, the
Mhm.
bad guy from Sleeping Beauty who curses an entire kingdom because she doesn't get invited to a party, and it turns out that in the movie she was just misunderstood. She was always the victim. She, turned out to be the good, girl, the good guy all along. And I just don't understand why you want to go that way. Like the
Mhm.
reason why she's such a popular, character is because her very, name, it's, Maleficent. It's like, the maker of like evil, like somebody who, just rejoices in being this evil person. Like it's fun to watch an evil person just, being motivated and, you know, um asserting themselves and then just doing their own thing. Like you can, like I was
Like
saying,
fully
like they,
committed to being evil. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Even if you're thwarted, even if you fail, it's fun to see the character just being
Yeah. Why
their.
can't we just love to hate them?
Yeah,
Just
exactly,
keep it
exactly.
that. Yeah. Keep it at the
Like,
we love to hate them situation.
yeah, I mean, the if the main guy, if the bad guy is going to be your protagonist, the audience is always going to empathize with it because it's just the nature of storytelling. When you're like, reading, from the point of view of like of that one character, you kind of naturally tend to empathize with them. And I mean, it's the old cliche of like, every person thinks that they're the hero of their own story. Like the bad guys
Right.
still think that, they're the good guys. Just like the old meme of like, do you think we are the baddies? Say, the guys from, the Nazis. Like, you don't see yourself as the bad guy. And
Right.
even, but it's your actions that speak out, what you actually do. So, in the case of Maleficent, yeah, sure, curse an entire kingdom and doom them to die because you didn't get invited to a party.
Like God damn it, I
Yeah,
wanted to
just think,
party
yeah,
with all
it's
No,
just
y'all.
no. What happened was that she cursed like she cursed one person, but the fairies made the counterspell where they curse the entire kingdom so that they'll wake up with her.
that's true. That's true.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah,
But still, all the same, it's like, look, your issues with the other fairies, not her.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
it's just I like the idea of that of a evil person just being that kind of petty and just taking such a exaggerated um, course of
Yeah,
action just
why couldn't they just be like, she's gonna have other parties that she never got invited to, and or she made parties that she invited everybody and nobody showed up. And maybe that's
no,
like the reason why she's all like, I do this all the time. I go through all this trouble, and you guys never show up. And you didn't even invite me to this party. How dare you?
yeah.
That'll be great.
I mean, yeah, I mean, just think of some just I was gonna say
It might be
break.
because they wanted to make Maleficent feel like a comfort character for Mean Girls and like bossy, the bossy
Comfort
woman,
character for
like.
Mean Girls.
uh,
So it could have been like, hey, look, not everyone in Disney is a perfect princess. You can buy Maleficent, be that bad girl at the office, meow. It's like, okay, I mean, that's pretty much what
That's funny.
it could have been doing. It could have been going for that bad girl money, going like, yeah, yeah, feel a little bit naughty, celebrate evil week by watching Maleficent, because I mean there are people who
Yeah.
would idolize Maleficent
Mm.
unironically, or
right.
would go through a phase where they might think like, oh, Maleficent's so badass because she did bad things
She
to a
don't
Disney
take no shit.
princess.
Right.
She don't take no shit. She don't need no man. She got her powers and she can turn into a dragon. And then they made like the movie where she's like the sad puppy dog bear. And then that's how they just really roll with the story, going like, oh, there's two sides to the story. You thought the fairies were good. Oh, the
Right.
fairies were really bitches. Oh, the heck bitches.
And I mean,
I could see that.
specifically, Disney has always had like, like characters that are evil characters that a lot of people like. Like a lot of people really like, Scar or, Maleficent
Oh right,
or
because
Hades from.
their scenes where they're full on evil is like iconic.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Like who could
Like
forget what he did to his brother? I mean, people
yeah.
use that as memes even. It's it's quite the thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite the thing.
I definitely don't want, The Lion King 2, Scar's redemption. I mean, it's like about him, how he was actually the good guy all along.
Let's have a Pete movie where it's all about Pete having a redemption arc, where it's like Peg Leg Pete is really not so bad. It's just you never see Mickey being the bad guy. It's like, this is going to be our most breakout movie since Runaway Brain, where you see Mickey in a bad light. It's like, okay. I
Runaway.
mean, that'll be interesting, right? Peg Leg Pete, if his side of the story going like, well, Mickey has always been in my way. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
You
I
know who
think
doesn't need a redemption arc? The king of the monsters, Godzilla.
oh
ah
shit.
yes
Yeah.
Godzilla,
This is my sort of way of doing the segue. How am I doing, guys?
fantastic.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, uh, Godzilla versus Kong, right? That's where we're going. So yeah,
I guess.
Maybe, I don't know. Do you guys
yeah,
want? I mean, we can
yeah.
keep talking about,
Well,
people who
like
don't,
what
decide
No,
about?
redemption.
I just mean like okay, like what's your stance on the movie?
Oh, I liked
Um,
it. I had a lot of fun. It was, a lot of Pacific Rim style fun. Just dumb, all
sure.
out fun. You know, you don't want to think about it. In fact, you know, as a person who's, very much into science, I found all the physics absolutely offensive. Like that's not how gravity works.
Oh,
It's not
really?
how,
You were looking for like in-depth physics in a Godzilla movie, huh?
you know, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like I was just trying to turn off my brain. Like, no, Hollow Earth
Yeah,
could never
yeah.
exist in the actual world because everything would just
Uh,
Yeah,
compress into itself. It would just, oh, but just stop looking at the,
yeah.
stop looking at the
The
science,
inside
Carlos.
world thing. What was it?
the
Inside
Hollow
World or
Earth.
the Hollow Earth?
The
Yeah,
Hollow
that's
Earth.
what it's
Yeah,
called. Yeah, that one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I agree. I definitely was all like, okay, I know I'm gonna just turn off my brain for this part.
yeah,
I mean, it's a giant fucking reptile
Yeah.
like destroying the world. Like you don't go
yeah, for
in with a
sure,
scientific mindset.
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure.
But one thing that I really liked it was just like the actual physics of how, you know, both of those creatures are animated. Like when they
Mm.
start fighting on top of the aircraft carriers, you can just and the very first punch that the Kong throws at Godzilla, like right smack into the face, you can just feel the full force of like every single tons of muscle just like punching and making contact. It's just
Right. The
touch.
animation was pretty well done
Oh
for
yeah.
like being so easy to kind of make it look like it's some sort of Power Ranger fight.
Mhm.
It's kind of an easy trap to drop into, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's easy to, if you put the camera too far away from these creatures, it tends to it tends to make them smaller. It
Right.
tends to make them look smaller. So, you know, I'm sure that they made it like, from a cinematography point of view, they always, had that challenge for like, okay, how do we show these gigantic creatures in all of their titanic size, but still, make them look like they're, like how do we show the full fights?
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It was enjoyable. Again, exactly to that in terms of that. It's just if you wanted to watch something that was like a classic, just you want to see a fight happen, and that's what's was enjoyable. And then
I was surprised that Kong had a whole story arc too.
yeah, that's
Character.
the other thing too. Is like they had the ability to give him some sort of like small semblance of background, which I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting at all.
yeah,
And that you fill in the blanks too, where you assume that his intelligence is like his biggest um, advantage as being one of the characters, and why like Godzilla is he's kind of a a big kind of KO one shot, really like a try hard at being the best,
Yeah.
And it was nice that you had different reasons to root for each character. But I would say Kong had the strongest story, like unexpectedly. Like I didn't expect to have some sort of really amazing story or anything, but that one, like you're like, okay, I can root for this guy. He's like has this whole characteristic that I can understand.
Yeah.
That
Like
he's
he's his own
trying.
character, he has a
Right.
he has a whole
There's an actual
personality.
motivation other than like Godzilla just being all like, I just want to be the best, just knock out everything. And
Wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
yeah, it was the Millie Bobby Brown's character was just
Oh,
like
yeah, it was such
that
a
whole
waste.
thing was just stupid.
Yeah.
And
It was like
yeah.
I love her as an actress. She's great, but it's just she was just so wasted in that character.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that kind of connected to our villains that that don't necessarily need redemption. Hey, it's kind of hard to like think of Godzilla as a villain because you don't
Yeah.
really get to experience the villain aspect of him. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
him
he's more of a
trashing.
force of nature.
Yeah, you're right. Like exactly. And that's like the hard part to imagine that he was ever a villain, but they treat him as one. And then you have a character that's trying to say like,
Man,
well,
isn't he destroying cities and stuff?
exactly. Well, he's destroying cities, but we're not experiencing like the
From the person's point of view on the ground,
like people like getting affected by the deaths and
the devastation and stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
God, those
It's
shots in
always
Hong
kind of
Kong
like
were so cool.
you just get
By the
this
way.
like small little one-liners and news things about how
Right.
he had destroyed stuff, and you're like, but anybody die? And like you don't really
Right.
get that perspective, and you only get Millie Bobby Brown. Well, he's an animal. Like he's just reacting to the like. I mean, like okay, but
I know, but we put down animals that kill people all the time. So
right.
I mean, we're talking about something that's racing and that's leveling entire cities and killing millions. I mean,
Yeah, we could just like it's like it wasn't enough for me to like get invested with Godzilla's whole story. So
Yeah.
it was, and then there was other side characters that were kind of like typical, like I'm a hacker man. Oh my god,
Yeah.
I thought it's like that trope that it's like I'm clicking clacking buttons and then making things happen. Technology. I have a
Right.
tinfoil hat.
Clickety
Right.
clackety, clickety clackety. You know I'm hacking if I'm doing the smackety.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and the fact that
I mean,
even with
the-
his supposed technological engineering background, how they
Right.
solved the situation was spilling soda. Was it?
oh my
I can't
god!
remember.
Right. They just
This is
spilled
stupid.
water on the console to like
This is the
stop the-
multi-billion-dollar like
Wow.
Right.
industry that like you can short circuit this billion-dollar machine that controls fucking Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So it
Oh.
was pretty stupid in
Yeah.
the whole like Godzilla aspect.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like every time that that the action cut to like Bobby Brown and her and her
The
cast
little-
of misfits, like
yeah.
I knew that it was just an excuse for the director to put us in to follow her arc to let us
Right.
in, to be the point of view of like, oh, this is what's happening in the background. This is how Mechagodzilla is gonna come into the foray. He's gonna be controlled by some Japanese guys who, by the way, was the son of Ken Watanabe from from the last movie, but we're never gonna mention it anyway.
Yeah, like what the hell? It's so all
Yeah.
these like random things that they could have built up to, that
Yeah.
that didn't build up anything. Like the characters that they threw that they had, like the villain that showed up in, what was it, Godzilla versus, or anyways, King of Monsters, right? That guy, like he never shows up.
Yeah.
He never shows up. Nothing gets mentioned about him. And on the fact that he just shows up too in that one, like he wasn't even a character from the previous movies, which was I was all like, what? So you mean he just showed up in this one randomly, and he just gets like some one-liner, like Yeah, he's an eco-terrorist. That's it. That's it. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you don't have nothing like even like a slightly background why he's doing all this fucking shit. Yeah. So yeah, and then we have another villain that's pretty much like
I mean,
just
Millie Bobby Brown's character, friend who's like who's a podcaster. That's like the scum of the earth. Ugh.
oh yeah. He's a podcaster. Yeah. God, that whole malarkey. That was funny.
I'm just being self-deprecating. Um,
Well, he
but
was a podcast. He really is a podcaster in the freaking
yeah, in the universe, he was like a
yeah,
conspiracy
yeah.
theory, podcaster. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um,
pretty funny.
we're different because we don't talk about conspiracy theory.
Nah.
We just have bad content.
We
Anyway.
just have content no one watches. It's fine.
Right. Anyway,
We do it for fun.
I had a lot of fun when they were actually like in the Hollow Earth, like inside the stuff. Like they,
Yeah,
you see, like,
that was pretty cool.
yeah, the sky was just again, the sky itself was just more of the Earth in itself. You realize that that they're living inside that dome and like there's like technological stuff in there. Like King Kong gets that. I don't know what best way to describe it, a radioactive magical axe. That's how
Oh, so it's yeah. So the fin of the axe is Godzilla's species fin, and so like when Godzilla is capable of charging it.
Yeah.
Because like the laser blast, right? So
Yeah.
So you get this idea that there was once a huge fight between the Godzilla-like creatures and Kong creatures, and this was their domain, essentially, and they had hunted the Godzillas, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that's where the energy that they need to power the Mechagodzilla, because that's like the
obviously
source.
obviously their Kong, people were actually kind of advanced because they created a whole temple and a door that can open up only if you put the right key.
Oh right, yeah, right. So they had some semblance of intelligence to make a temple of some sort.
Yeah.
Either them or it's even like maybe what other species that could have been there. Like for all you know, like the Kong creatures were worshipped by other humans that lived in that place.
Yeah.
For all you know, but whatever. You don't know any of that yet unless they reveal it. But yeah. Which is a good setup for like the actual fight where Godzilla and Kong defeat Mechagodzilla because he's like bigger threat essentially.
Yeah.
And everybody
That fight was so cool.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Like I like the aspect that they pretty much just that they both would have lost if they were just going 1v1. Like they needed each other in the end. They needed the power of the axe, and they needed to, they needed the power axe. I mean, essentially, power the axe and shoot him, and Godzilla wouldn't have been able to take him out on his own with just his laser beam.
And I definitely enjoy the whole movie. I enjoy the fact that Godzilla and King Kong did actually fight, and King Kong at least won one round. They they literally have like 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And again,
yeah, of course, like they had to do it that way. They don't wanted to go like too far and be all like, just have Godzilla defeat him, like nonstop.
right, for sure.
That would have been too tilted in one side.
Yeah, I like that in the second part. Godzilla's like he's hanging on top of one of the the biggest skyscrapers, and when he sees Godzilla passing by, he has a crane on one hand, just throws it on on one side so that Godzilla's distracted and he can throw himself on top of it. It's like, hey, there's some of that intelligence. Everybody's
Right. He
talking
was
about.
using the environment
Yeah,
to his advantage. Yeah. Like he had to use the environment, which is like kind of the area that they use and the way they set it up, like you could definitely tell, like, oh, this city doesn't exist, but it looks really really cool.
It'll be Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if it's that neon. Is it that neon? Like, do they
I've
have
never
that
been
much?
to
Pretty
Hong
neon.
Kong, but
Is
if it is,
Oh, okay. If it is, then I need to go to Hong Kong.
me
'Cause
too. Let's go to
it,
freaking Tron City.
yeah, it really did. Yeah, seriously, like they look really amazing. Giant Tron City. That's a good way of putting it because it really did look like that. Um, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
aside from
Wow.
that, let's see. We got. Well, there's also the like deaths in stories that like are kind of like the retcon. Like there's more story to it. And then we have, oh, if anybody heard the news about Epic, the Epic Store is gonna projected to lose 444 million by the end of the year.
So can we talk about that? Because honestly, I don't know much about that.
So it's basically that Apple, because between the lawsuit between Apple and Epic, it reveals that Epic Store will lose that much by the end of the year in projections, and it's
Oh
due
wow.
to um, the reason why they would lose that much is because of their how should I say their exclusivity deals that they're paying to developers,
Oh,
and then on top of
okay.
that, that they are giving away free games via the Epic Store.
Oh
And we're
wow.
like full games, like not just like discounted young, old games or indie games.
Hmm.
Even like you're getting full games from them at like something like a monthly thing, and
It's a new game every month,
yeah, pretty much,
kind of like the PlayStation Store,
kind of like that.
PlayStation
And
Plus. Yeah.
with that, they've been projected to lose that much money, but Epic also reveals that they make 700 million anyways through Epic Store, so they've already doubled, almost doubled that, and then not including the including like sales, including Fortnite sales too, because it's through their store, and
Okay.
they're only like losing this much because they are willing to pay the developers that choose their store as their
Well, yeah, you have to.
yeah,
The same way that PlayStation Plus does and Game Pass does.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, like who cares? Like,
yeah,
like because obviously Epic, they can afford to lose that money, which is why they did those exclusivity deals in the first place. They knew they were going to lose money the same way that Microsoft knew that they're like hemorrhaging money because of Game Pass, but they can afford to. Like it doesn't matter. Like
yeah,
that Game Pass is not profitable at all. Like it's they've talked about how they lose millions and millions of dollars on that every month, but it's like people love it, and they are dealing some serious body blows to Sony just based on the stuff they're doing with Game Pass. Especially when you compare it to PS Plus, which is kind of they have good months, but it has diminishing returns to people who've been with it for a long time. So it's I don't know. It's like who cares? Like it's just
Um,
Epic being like, oh yeah,
on
okay.
the
Here
one
are the
hand, they can
who,
afford it, yeah, but
who are
on
the
the other hand, it's like $500 million
so
almost.
what? They make billions with Fortnite. And again, they knew what they were doing with the exclusivity deals in the first place. They knew it wasn't going to be profitable, but they did it anyway. It's not like they didn't know. It's not
I
like you can
mean,
be like, "Oh, we're going to give away free games every month and pay the developers a certain amount of money, and then we're going to be making money from free games." Like none of the
right.
services that do that make money. It's just
yeah,
that some of them are like hemorrhage more money than others.
Right. I mean, I think that um I know that they want to, use that kind of exclusivity to, bring in more people so that they can, finally start shipping at Steam, which is the, big titan of you know, digital distribution for PCs. That's a double-edged sword that they obviously know that they were, playing with because um that exclusivity also means that they also get a bad rep among a lot of the PC population because they don't like to be they don't like to be to be treated in such a way in which they feel like they're being constricted to only this one platform.
But I mean, it's what we talked about last week too, where it's not so much like it might not be as big of a deal if the Epic Store was a better platform, right? If it was comparable to Steam, which it's not, and it could be. Epic again, it has more than enough money and more than enough manpower to make that store fucking great, but they just don't. And like that's been the case for years now, where it's just like this, it's so empty and it has no sense of community the way that Steam does and all these other things, and it's just like, what are you guys? What are you waiting for? Like, do it. Like,
and instead of like making all these exclusivity deals that is actually giving you a bad rep with a lot of the community, just make a better user experience. Just make it more friendly, more community.
Yeah, it's basically the issue is like the fact that they have this whole interface and they're facing against somebody that already has been building that good reputation from a long time, and we already know what Steam is doing well at, and Epic is not living up to that. So they kind of felt like they're skipping steps, basically. Like, you get the exclusivity deal after you've already made the stores, one, secure, two, also very interface friendly, maybe even, or just useful in the sense of the community that you want to build. I understand like there's like what would be, I guess, noble to say that, hey, developers get screwed over when it comes to having to deal with all these expenses, and it just doesn't make for a good ground for the gaming community to thrive and produce more good games, or just variety of games. And Steam and many other developers or publishers even don't give a good deal. Like they're making those games at a loss, and they're not getting the bigger piece of pie. So I understand like the noble idea of Epic, but then
I mean,
their steps,
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Well,
I
you're assuming
corporations.
based on Fortnite. So anything before Fortnite, when they had their engine, which is the Unreal Engine, they've used it in a way where people outside of just publishers or bigger name studios that have the money, they've used it in a way where it's more open source and it's meant for the community to develop new ideas, new games. And that's where their idea was coming from. And they're using that as kind of their driving force. So they're trying to contribute to the game industry in the sense that here's these sources that you can use, that you can, like, it's a really good engine, and you can develop from that. So they've had it so that, like, if you're, say, one guy making a game from the ground up, like, you can use our engine, and you could completely use it for free. And in the contract that you don't have to sign even at all is that if it makes up to like a certain percentage of how much, like if it like pops off and is like, oh, this new game and it's making millions or something like that, that's like the only time when they actually are like, oh, you used our engine, like you used it for free, like this is the percentage, and this is how much that we're gonna take from that. But unlike other people, other companies that has an engine, you can't use it for free whatsoever. To learn from, you have to pay out the ass, like $300, $500 just to use the program that's going to be outdated in the next 2 years. So in terms of that, like I guess that makes sense for like how the industry kind of makes it hard for new up and coming game designers, programmers, and artists to even break into it, because you have this huge gate that you have to get across. When you can't get that experience either if you had been able to use these tools. So I understand like they're trying to like help like more of indie development in the sense that hey, like here's your competitors. They're taking that much out of the pie, like even before the game even fucking comes out. We're not gonna take that, right? And
I mean, not for a while. I mean,
not
they
for a while.
like
Exactly.
here's the thing. Like,
They're still
I
gonna make the
understand.
money. Like they made the fucking engine. Like,
Yeah.
of course they deserve some of the money because they've
Yeah,
worked their
I
job.
understand. But the thing is like I wouldn't. I mean, that's all great and it is important. I wouldn't say what they're doing is. I mean, nothing. It's a. They're not. It's not noble. There's always an ulterior motive for a giant corporation. And they don't need anybody's defense. But what I will say is that with Epic, it's again, it comes down to what we were saying before, where it's like if you're going to have these indie developers and all these things exclusive to your store, you know what would really help them out if people actually wanted to come to your store so that they could buy their games.
Right.
So they could buy those indie games. Because if you put these indie platformers and you restrict them to one platform that no one wants to use, guess what? Those indie developers have been paid, but at the same time, they're still going to lose out on monumental sales that they would have gotten if people actually wanted to migrate over, or if there was already a community vying for that Epic store. You're basically you're paying them a lump sum, and then you're sending them to an almost vacant platform, which is a problem. Because then their sales, they sell a certain number, but then it always has a ceiling to it because of where they are.
Yeah.
So it's like you really want to, if you really want to keep helping out the indie developers, then make your platform better. That helps the indie developers, it helps the users, and it helps you in the long run. So why aren't you doing that? There's no reason for that, and there's no explanation.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is that most of the community that's driven through the Epic in general, and using Unreal Engine has already been just purely more developer friendly. So even before Fortnite, even before any of that stuff, like the amount of documentation and then about indie developers making things through the Unreal Engine is pretty vast. Like it's like pretty huge community that goes from not only just game industry but also the movie industry as well. And a lot of CG artists use Unreal Engine for a lot of different things, even if it's like small stuff. And then like I think that's the problem. It's not really player friendly. It's not.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which is your biggest audience. That's your audience.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, and that's the thing.
I'm
is
not
it's like
disagreeing with you on the fact that it's
I understand.
For the players, but that's where the community has been coming from originally, and they just need to make that transition. Which I don't know. I haven't even touched it in a good while. So
again, it's just like that's awesome, but that's that developer community, as big as it is minimal compared to the community around Fortnite. You already have that community there. Like Epic was not a household name before Fortnite. Nobody, like the user, like your average Fortnite user didn't know who the fuck Fortnite was. There's so many streamers didn't know who Epic was before Fortnite. Like there's so many like big name streamers who were like, I didn't know who the fuck Epic was before Fortnite was. Like I didn't know. And it's just like you have this huge community in what is still the biggest game in the world. Like fucking use it. Like use that community to fucking populate your store and get everybody, like yourself, the developers, everybody, more sales.
Yeah, and it's even funnier that like there's even to this day people don't even realize that without Epic you wouldn't even have Gears of War. And it's just like really funny that like it takes this long for that many people to realize that the Epic engine was being used for like the majority of like.
Because that's what's happening all over the game industry. That's what people are like people didn't know who the fuck like. Somebody like Neil Druckmann or somebody like Amy Hennig or even, programmers and stuff, people didn't know who those people were even 10 years ago. But now, you're seeing people your casual user understanding what an engine is, understanding who the game director is, who the game programmer is. They're getting more more of a spotlight across the industry. That's just something that's sort of happening. I mean, it's even happening, in the movie industry and stuff. I mean, it was there more before because people knew who Spielberg and stuff like that was. People knew the behind the scenes, but now people are more interested in it than they ever have been before. So it makes sense that it's taken this long. But I think from here on in, it's just gonna that sort of curiosity for behind the scenes is going to become even more fervent. Like people are going to want to know more and more as time goes by.
It's like you were saying. It's like you're saying. Like it just Epic just needs to be more consumer friendly. Like I understand that their ideas to be developer friendly and to be and to lean into that community, but eventually you have to sell your games to start making money. Like eventually, these people all, those developers want to be making, money on their own. They don't want to just be, and completely dependent on, on Epic, even if they're using their, even if they're using.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like I'm not saying I'm completely defending them. That they did have a lot of failing games, like for instance, what was that one that's it's like a MOBA, but like it's kind of third person. And they kind of like it's a shooter, but it's a MOBA. I forget what was it. They got pretty much it doesn't exist anymore. Paragon, there you go. That game is just gone now. Like you can gone as in like that's the funny thing too. So most games that just disappear, like they'll shut down the servers and it's unplayable, right? Especially nowadays. Now that you have games or systems even that are interconnected to your system. That if the publisher like for instance Sony shuts down their servers to the Sony stores, guess what? Your fucking PS3 is bricked. Like it ain't gonna work. They made it so that the fucking thing, once you can't connect to the online store, you can't even fucking use the system anymore.
Actually, an update on that. The PlayStation 3.
They did change it. Yeah, they just recently said.
Well, yeah, they rubber banded after the huge backlash because developers there were so many developers who were like, well, we're fucked because like Sony didn't give them any notification that they were shutting down the Vita and PS3 and PSP stores.
I can imagine a lot of developers at Sony going like, don't you guys have PS4s?
I mean, that's the thing is that like I think a lot of people think like that is that it's just like, well, you're just selling. Why are you selling your stuff on Vita? It's like you don't understand. A lot of people you can make a lot of money like just from selling on one system, even if it's not like a giant system. And a lot of those developers like are it's make or break. Like if they're on Vita and like it just shuts down, like that studio is shuttered. Like they're fucked. And it's interesting because Colin Moriarty he has a game studio now, and he was in that very same, or he was in a similar situation where he was developing a game and was going to come to multiple platforms, and Vita was one of them. And like he went through the whole process of it's like we'll be fine, like our company will be fine because like we have enough capital, but a lot of other developers weren't, and like he was going through it like. I mean, Sony obviously they knew they were going to do this obviously before they announced it, but they still sold developers dev kits like months before, just not telling them, oh, your game has to be like on there before August, otherwise you're not going to make any money. And then even after August, it's shut down. Like so, it's just like they didn't tell anybody anything, and so all these developers who are developing their games for Vita, that's the problem is that like even though Sony has already basically taken it back and like been like we're not actually going to do it, we're just kidding, like it's just like developers already canceled their games. Like what the fuck are you talking about? Like you still fucked over all of these people, and it's just what did you expect? Like, what did you expect? Like, you're literally like charging people for dev kits to develop on your system, like literally weeks before you announce that we're shutting the platforms that your games are going to be on down in a matter of months. It's just like it's ridiculous. I can't. It's like it's unbelievable. Honestly.
It's like the old joke of like the doctor who's supposed to tell you have one more day to live, but he forgot to call you yesterday.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I mean, just on a more I guess theoretical point of view, think of all the games you had on your PS3. They're pretty much they're gone, like
Yeah.
tears in the rain.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you know what? The thing is like I think his name is Jim Ryan, the new CEO or the newer CEO of Sony, and that guy is like he's out of touch with his audience
Man.
because like
Don't you
you
guys
see,
have
kidding.
PS5s?
yeah, I mean, it's not. It goes farther than that. Where like you had like other CEOs like Sean Layton and stuff. Like they had backgrounds in business, but also backgrounds in like developing games, which we've talked about on the show. Like that's extremely important as like a CEO of a game company or a publisher to like be in touch with both ecosystems, know how both things work. And Jim Ryan is not that. I think he's gotten like special thanks on games and stuff, but he doesn't really, he hasn't done anything like that. He's a purely business guy, and it shows. Like, I mean, like I think in one of their like, not their whatever they're called, the fucking Sony Directs or whatever the fuck they are. They were showing off like Gran Turismo or something like from the PS1, I think, and like he was like, "Man, look how blocky it is. Who would ever want to play this?" And I'm just like, dude, like people want to play it. Like, what do you mean? Like people want to play it. Like I understand that Sony was, they were, before the launch of the PS5, they're like, we believe in generations. We're gonna, segment the PS5 and all this stuff. And then, obviously now it's like, oh no, just kidding. We don't. Like, you don't even really need a PS5 because every game is coming to PS4 too. And it's just like, I understand why. Like, obviously you still have 115 million people playing PS4s. I get that. But at this moment, there's a lot of people, and, I don't necessarily, like, I'm kind of fine with, everybody having everything, but I do understand the argument that a lot of people are making about, like, then why did we buy this system? Like, because there's nothing to really play on it that is not available anywhere else. Like, aside from a few things like Demon Souls and a few, like, Bug Snacks and a few other small things, like, there's not a lot to sort of justify your purchase yet. And even
they still haven't even released Knack 3.
It's coming, I promise.
I hope so.
I mean, you have things that like we don't know the release dates of exactly, like Horizon 2, and like that game is already been announced for PS4 and PS5. So that game is already. It's nice that everyone's gonna have it, but it's also like, well, that game's not gonna be taking full advantage of the PS5 then. Like, we already know that at this point, and it's a little disappointing, especially as a game with the first game being on PS4 and it being PS4 exclusive, and it was pretty far into the generation, and it just taking full advantage of that system, and we got to see sort of the result of that, and and it's unfortunately not going to be the case this time. And in terms of things like the God of War sequel and all that, like, we don't know whether those are going to be exclusives or whether they're going to be, it's coming to PS4 and PS5, and like, okay, like, yeah, I don't know.
It's like,
it's a whole can of worms.
Yeah. That'll making your, not there being a point to, to switch to a whole new generation. Like, why would we users, have to spend, want to spend $400-$500 on a new console if there's no.
No, I mean 100%. I mean, because like Carlos, you in particular, you really want to play Demon Souls, and I'm like, I understand that, like, and it makes sense, but it's just like that would literally be like the only exclusive you would probably play on that console, because there's not much else that's exclusive to the PS5. Like, so you're really, I mean, you're missing Demon Souls. You're not really missing anything else, though. Like, you can get everything I can get on your PS4. And maybe it looks a little, maybe it doesn't look quite as clear, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah. In fact, just release Demon Souls on PS4 at 30 frames per second. I'm fine with that.
You might as well at this point, honestly.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I would, So I'm 6 months into not being able to acquire the console, and at this point, I've just completely, just given up, and I'm also just,
It's gonna be a while. Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be a while, and I'm honestly just not interested anymore. Like you said,
Yeah.
you know, there is no point in me getting, a PS5 if there's no, software that I'm actually gonna be, playing on it, other than
Yeah.
Demon Souls. Like I have a huge library of games on PS4 that I haven't, that I still want to catch up. I have a huge library on my PC, and my PC can play you know, most of this generation games that, are pretty much PS5, uh, settings. So
Yeah.
why would I get a new console for that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Hell, I mean the hype. It's they had this whole hype, growing um, throughout the season, and they rely on like the hype and just like building this momentum, and it just becomes completely useless once you just have to go through the frustration of not being able to get your own PS5, and at some point you just have no motivation to get a console anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to get it for.
Yeah.
And it's like
And
anything
also,
that is to get it for, you probably already got or could get better in a different system.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the announcements are like probably so way off into the future. It's like I could think about it some other time. It's
Yeah.
definitely agreeable.
That's true too. Yeah.
To your point that some of the games are just cross generational. Resident Evil Village is gonna come out for
Yep.
PS4 Pro.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, for a PSA, there is a demo that's available on PS4, PS5, and PS4 Pro.
No, it's not available anymore. It was a limited time. I think it was
really?
like only 8 or 12 hours or something.
Boo.
I think also
That's
there's another thing that I haven't really confirmed either, but the PS3 and the Vita stores, they said they said that it's gonna stay
Oh.
open, but
Yeah.
it's
Just to interrupt you there for a second. No, I did just get an email that said the beta is gonna be open from the 21st through the 22nd on PS4 and yeah. So continue.
The beta for what do you mean? Oh,
For
the demo?
Village. Yeah, the demo.
Okay.
Oh, I guess
They
changed it.
call
That's
them
cool.
betas now.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
Yeah.
coming out in
Right.
3 weeks. It'll be a
Is
totally
it the
different game, we
or
swear.
is it the multiplayer game? Because they
It
have the
says they-
multiplayer in there now.
Oh yeah, the
Good
reverse.
question. Let me
Yeah.
see. I am looking at the email right now. It says gameplay demo, Resident Evil Village. I hope I get stepped on by the big tall lady.
That's totally the advertisement.
Jump
in the email.
into
huh?
Nowadays.
I know, right? Just
It might as
make
well
the
be.
big tall lady with her feet on top
Everybody's
of your
all
head.
like, we didn't intend that, but we are glad that everybody.
Oh,
enjoys the
they're milking it
character."
for sure. They're
Yeah, they really they're loving it. It's
like,
like, hey.
here's her shoe size. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like actually giving details.
I mean, that is what
She's
people
pretty
want, I
funny.
guess.
Yeah.
She's size 14.
But the Vita and PS3 stores, like they said that something's closing in July though. It stays open. You can re-download old games and whatnot, but they said something about the commerce part is closing in either June or July or something. And I don't know what that means. Like I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out, does that mean that new games are no longer purchasable or
Hmm.
Yeah, it probably means no more submissions.
Well, I mean, then
Huh.
it's the same thing.
Then it's the same
Like
thing.
those
Yeah,
those developers are still fucked.
yeah. So essentially, it's a mask. It's like, hey, we kind of did what you said, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I
They're
mean,
putting
that's
a
my
blanket on the
question.
corpse
I
and
don't.
saying
mean-
it's sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Right.
know either.
That's a. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them.
Ironically,
No.
Vita, which means alive in Italian, is gonna die.
Yeah, is gonna die. The irony.
Yeah.
They're killing it. They're killing
Yeah.
their baby.
Pretty much.
So
Yeah.
They're not
because
decided.
when I
Unfortunately.
read the document or whatever the article, like I was reading specifically that, and then the wording they chose was that you can still re-download your old games. So I'm like, but
I
what
see.
about the new ones? So like
Right.
I don't know if this was just kind of a secret kind of sweep the dust under the rug thing. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just
Yeah.
they're doing it to sort of appease but really in the end, like, yeah, he pretty much screwing everybody over.
Yeah.
They're all going like full Oracle from the Matrix. Everything that has a beginning has an end. From the other winning movie, The Matrix
I mean,
Revolutions.
I mean, I'm thinking more Obi-Wan, where it's not like in a certain point of view, we did do what you wanted, but in another point of view, we definitely didn't. We definitely did not. We only did a half measure. Essentially, the way it sounds like to me in interpretation is, okay, all the indie developers, yeah, you still can't come out with your game by this date, like probably,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then two, future games,
And
never
even
gonna
if you
happen.
do, and even if you do, the sales stop in August.
Right? Yeah, like what?
It's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I see what you guys did there. You really fucked over those developers. Like, they're still gonna be sweating even like now. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
change for them. Everybody
No.
else is happy about being able to still be able to re-download their I don't know,
Okay.
Hello Kitty Wonderland. I don't know what. I
Hey
can't
man,
make a
you
joke.
put
I
that
don't
you put that in hard, and it becomes the most hardcore thing.
know.
You have no idea. It took me 11 days to get through the tutorial.
Oh my god.
Think- Actually, I think my little sister had a Hello Kitty game. This was a long time ago. Anyway,
Cool. All right. Let's,
Oh, it says that. So it says that only the PSP commerce functionality will end on July. The It says the PS3 and the Vita will continue to go on, but for the PSP, yeah, that's when that ends.
Huh.
yeah, you
That
think
makes sense.
they try to bring Apex Legends to Vita?
Okay. So there is
They are bringing it
I
to
just
mobile.
realized another thing, a little nugget of news before we end the night. How about, okay, so we were kind of talking about how the future of the conversation between the developer, publisher, and then the fans, right? Like there's three, to me, there's three different things going on. Whereas like you got, say, Sony, and then you got the developer that's funded by Sony to make a game. But then you have the fans of the game, right? So what I'm proposing as this, just really kind of off the cuff topic. So has anybody heard about this? Was it a developer
I think I know
was
which we're going
involved
with.
with
Go ahead.
Days Gone? Yes, you might know what.
Ben.
Yes, Days. So
Go for it.
so
Just
Days
give us the
Gone.
full.
Yeah. So Days Gone, one of the developers had pretty much said this pretty tone deaf thing, essentially, where Sony axed the idea to have Days Gone sequel, and there's fans for it, right? It
I'm a
didn't do
fan,
so
yeah,
well,
I mean, it did do well. It sold well.
like Metacritic wise, it didn't do well. Like when it came out,
Well,
the
I mean,
launch
yeah, it
was
got
really
like
poor.
71. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
as big as they wanted, but yeah.
Exactly. So, like, I'm saying financially they did fine. Like, I'm talking about, like, as, like, how,
Critically.
like, typically back then or even now we still deal with the whole, like, oh, it came out and this is, like, riddled with bugs, and now, like, the reviews are getting kind of being punched a little bit by it.
Sure.
But it's not that bad. Like, it's the same thing like Cyberpunk in the sense, like, I mean, the bugs are bad. But I still see the good game in it. Like I can.
Well, I mean, the
two,
biggest problem with that,
right?
though, is that game's just unplayable for so many people. Whereas Days Gone had bugs, but it was, everybody still played it who reviewed it.
Right. Like it wasn't nearly as insane, but definitely earlier on, I think that was like the time in which it wasn't common or like an assumption that's gonna happen all the time. But anyways, like, just basically there's like a rift between some people that are like, oh, they played it and they had a fine, good time. And then there's other people that played it and it was just like, it's literally unplayable.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dropping the game. I'm not going to play this. And then there's other people that like, I'm waiting for reviews. The reviews pop up. They're like, bugs? Nah, I'm going to wait. And they don't, either they get it on discount or they never play it and they get it for free on the PSN. whatnot. So yeah, like there's like a lot of factors to consider in terms of kind of like the rough launch it had. And then like I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just saying like it didn't critically do that well, and then like it kind of affected that. And then on top of that, Sony, because of how they, I guess, judged that their risk taking to make a sequel, they were like, nah, we're not gonna do it. Like the sales, yeah, may have done quote unquote well, but at the same time, like when it came out, Metacritic wise, like wasn't doing well. They also didn't see the blockbuster kind of sale, which is like such a sad way of like thinking about it. It's like,
I mean, I don't know that that was
I
the
need
reason.
Sony to like Sony wants it to be like the level of like God of War or something like that, which is
Yeah.
like
Not necessarily. I mean,
It's
not
funny because
necessarily.
I'm looking at the website because I wanted to. I mean, I'm looking at the website. I'm googling, what the sales were, and it seems that it was a huge, it was a big financial success.
Well, yeah,
right,
that's what I said. It did well commercially, but not. I mean, it's divisive critically.
right, right. And
But in
that's a
terms of the way that Sony treats its first-party studios, it doesn't necessarily expect gangbusters from most of its first-party stuff. Um, I
I
the
mean, I
thing about
guess
Days
so.
Gone.
Yeah. But why did they not okay doing a sequel then?
But
Well,
anyway,
I think
so
I mean,
one
I
thing to
don't
say
know
about
because
the developer
well,
that
just hang on, hang on.
all right, all right, all right.
The thing that I was saying is that like it's um we don't know why they didn't like accept the pitch. We heard something about the pitch about like how they wanted to make it more co-op focused and have it be like I think more like shared world stuff. Which that doesn't sound like a great idea to me, especially based on what I liked about the original game. So it could have been that, but we also here's the thing: we know that they shuttered that idea for Days Gone sequel. We don't know that they didn't necessarily make another pitch and went with that one because the person who was being interviewed was an ex-director from the studio. They haven't worked there for a couple of years. So they're not exactly in tune to like what's going on
Yeah, what
now.
had happened. Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah, that's true.
but yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, and maybe this is where you were going, but like I think honestly, the thing that is more ridiculous, and this ties into the Last of Us remake thing that we were talking about last week, is that the people like the rumor again. There's a lot of speculation here, but the rumors are that the Bend, the studio that made Days Gone, was I believe this is the order of operations was that their sequel was canned, and then they were basically relegated to becoming a B team, like a support team for the I think the Last of Us. I think it was the Last of Us remake.
Yeah.
Because there was something else about an Uncharted game that was heavily rumored before, but I think Sony said that wasn't true or whatever. But like, yeah, I think that the rumor is that Ben was relegated to being a B team for the the Last of Us remake, which is a bad idea as we talked about last week, and it's dumb and all this stuff. But like, what a slap in the face.
Yeah.
To the studio. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, first of all, I mean, it didn't tank in terms of Metacritic. It got 71. It's not great, but it's not awful.
Yeah,
and,
it's not awful.
And,
yeah, exactly.
and let's be honest, as a business, you give a shit more about the profits, and it
Right.
profited. It charted on NPD, and it made a profit. And personally, as a first step in a potential franchise, I think it was pretty fucking good. And I think even the people who like played it at launch who were like, this isn't great, like they were still like, I can see the nuggets of greatness here, and I can see how a number 2 in this franchise would actually be awesome. Which is how a lot of franchises
Which
start.
is probably like the good thing about game development too, is that usually that's the case. Like
Right.
the first game isn't like gangbusters, but the second
Right.
one is always usually like they've learned their lessons,
Way
they
better,
know how
yeah.
to do it, and they stuff like that. And the
Right.
way the way the word goes, again, is like that Sony didn't see, for whatever reason, did not see the value in making a sequel. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It could be the way it was pitched. But
Yeah.
as far as we know from what they said, is that they got, and like this is again like the developer, the director, former director, that he was just basically just soul crushed in the sense that
Yeah.
I mean, they made their money, but at the same time they wanted to see it do even better. Like they didn't just want
Oh
an
yeah,
A, they
worked on
wanted
it for
A
a very
plus
long
plus
time.
plus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
like
worked on it for a long time.
right, yeah, and I can't, and I wish I could talk to some of the people that did the environments in it, because a couple people
Yeah.
that graduated from my school did do the environments for it, and
Oh, nice.
their stuff that they did was like astounding, like super
Oh,
high
yeah.
realistic, and like they're amazing, and
It's a beautiful game, yeah.
really sad to hear them dejected by the industry, because they
I mean, here's another unfortunate effect of that. Because I believe that ex-director who was interviewed was part of like the sort of the mass exodus from Bend after they were again rumored to be relegated to a B team on the Last of Us remake. Is that a lot of people were soul crushed by it and they left, like because not just that like sequel was panned and it was like just taken out of the equation, but more just because they're like, we made this game that did well. Like like it has some mixed reception, but it did well. And you're just making us a support team on this remake, like, and they left because of that. It's just like,
it's so weird. Sony makes some really weird decisions,
especially lately. And I've talked about this, I believe, briefly on the show before. But there is two Sonys. There is the humble Sony, which we saw in the PS3 generation, when they were losing. And then there is cocky Sony, who we saw at the beginning of the PS3 generation, get a second job to pay for this $600 thing, and that we've saw throughout, further and further into the PS4 generation, as they were winning more and more, they got more and more cocky. And now you see them, again, beginning of the PS5 version, cocky Sony, making bad decisions, being like, we don't need backwards compatibility. It's just like, listen, like, it's just, even if you just do it for optics, just to compare to Microsoft, you need to do this. You need to do this. Like, I understand that the sales showed that like only 10% of people like use the backwards compatibility functionality. I don't care. Do it. Because frankly, Microsoft is hitting body blows on you and of all the things that they are doing. And it is quite obvious based on the studios they're buying, the very consumer-friendly decisions that they're making, like that Microsoft is very much like, Sony, we're coming for you. Like, we're fucking coming for you hard. And like, Sony is not,
you know what I mean?
They're not reacting properly. Like they're just like, they're kind of just like, yeah, we're on top. Who cares? And it's just like, guys, you've learned this decision before the hard way. Do you remember when you were losing fucking hard? When you were on PS2, you're on top of the world. PS3, not so much. Why aren't you learning?
They don't remember things.
And
man.
this is the problem with cocky Sony, is that they always get like this, and then they make horrible decisions, and it's not until the consumer's affected and the developers are affected and Sony starts tanking where they're like, you know what? Let's start making some good decisions. Let's start. And by then it's too late. Like, it's too late. You've lost out on sales. You've lost all these things. And it's just like, yeah, it's just like, please, please be more proactive than reactive. Like, come on.
It's just the nature of the corporate world where they, think of short-term gains versus, the long-term.
But that is true. But the problem is that Microsoft has, for the last few years, and clearly with all the stuff they're doing, is playing the long game. They have learned to play the long game, to look like 10, 15 steps ahead and be like, okay, we might not be in front here, like right now, but like we're making decisions and we're giving the users what they want, so that in 3 years, when these studios that we've bought are coming out with all these great games, and either they're exclusives or more likely they are games where it's just like, we're going to put this on all platforms, and you can either pay full price on PlayStation or you can buy Game Pass and play it for free. Which platform would you rather go to?
Yeah.
Like, they're playing the long game. They're smarter. And it's just like Sony needs to sort of start matching that intelligence, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I don't want to, like, you know, again, I'm not into that whole tribalistic thing of like, I'm all for Sony. I don't care what decisions they make. I'm all for them. I go where the games are.
Right.
If fucking Microsoft
Yeah.
in 3 years is destroying with Bethesda and all these other acquisitions, I'm just going to get an Xbox and be playing on that most of the time. I don't give a fuck.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree totally on that. The story that we're referencing back to like the Days Gone situation, is like basically the guy Gavin had made a pretty tone deaf like response, I would say, that kind of pits like this kind of mentality of developer versus fan. In my opinion, it kind of does. So he said recently, Garvin, so John Garvin was speaking. Wait, hold on. Am I reading this right? John Garvin was speaking to game designer David. What's his name? Jaffe on his YouTube show. Jaffe. Okay. Where he was asked if he's heard anything about any quote unquote meaningful uptick of engagement with Days Gone since the game was added to the PlayStation Plus collection on PS5, and then and Garvin says, I do have an opinion on something that your audience may find interest. It might piss them off.
Oh, I know what you're going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the one where he says, if you love a game, buy it at fucking full price. I can't tell you how many times I've seen gamers say, yeah, I got that on sale. I got it through PS Plus, whatever. And of course, the article continues that he's really miffed by the fact that, like, yeah, you're experiencing this great game, then why didn't you fucking buy it when it first came out, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, and what was the next one? This is the big one, I think. He goes on to say, I'm just saying you don't. Okay, so this has to do with Sony rejecting a sequel. He's like, I'm just saying you don't complain if a game doesn't get a sequel if it wasn't supported at launch. And then he says, it's like God of War got whatever number millions of sales at launch, and Days Gone didn't. And then he goes on to say, just speaking for me personally as a developer, I don't work for Sony. I don't know what the numbers are. So he's basically like, it's kind of a jab in the sense that he's miffed by the fans not supporting it in the first place, and now they're complaining that Days Gone is not happening, and it's like, where were you before? So like, I understand his point of view.
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from. I don't
agree with that.
I don't agree. Yeah,
like it's just like 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 a lot of things had happened when it came out, and with the mix of
there's
things,
a lot of different factors for sure.
And it's just like, it is sad to see like a game being put so much effort into and just not hitting the kind of confidence that I guess Sony may have wanted from them. But like, again, you're perfectly right. Like, I don't know if that was the true reason why they didn't make the sequel, or okay.
Right.
And it just started making me think about how, like, it's the Sony won't say anything. Like, they're not gonna say like what really was the decision, because they don't want to be the enemy to the fans, but they're okay with the developers saying this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And letting the fans hate them further. It's like,
they're more than happy to throw the developers under the bus, for sure.
Right.
I mean, because it can be the sales. Like, I'm looking it up, and it broke, one of the, it was like the 8th best sold game in 2019. Like,
again, it charted on NPD a couple times, and the thing is that like the thing is like this is Sony's MO historically. Like they're sort of memed like line that they always do in a situation like this.
But Apollo getting a remastered of The Last of Us is so crucial. I mean, have you seen back? Have you gone back to that game? It looks like shit. Said
I
no
mean,
one
again,
ever.
if it first of all, you don't need it because backwards compatibility on PS5. Second of all,
Right.
it's not a remastered; it's a remake. That's the
A
biggest
remake.
issue, right? Is that like if it was just a remaster to be like, oh,
Right.
you want us to pay for this again? Well, that's dumb, but okay. Like if you want to buy it again, but it's just like, oh, it's a remake where like. You know,
Oh my
based
God.
on obviously they wanted to line up with the show and stuff, and like, are you gonna reskin Joel as Pedro Pascal and
Oh,
Ellie is
jeez.
Bella
Please
Ramsey? Like,
don't.
are you gonna change fucking the story points so that like, oh, is Last of Us 2 canon now? I don't know which one is the real Last of Us. I'm not sure, and it's just like, why? Like, I can't believe. Like, I'm not gonna. Again, we went into this in depth last week, but like, it's just. I mean, I really hope. Again, these rumors are from some pretty reputable sources. So I would be surprised if it wasn't the case, but man, I really hope that's not the case. I really
Like you
hope
said,
that
it's such a
just
slap in the face, right? Like, telling them it's like, well, yeah, we hear you about, going forward with like, your own original IP.
right.
But how about you just, how about you just, work on this better game?
Yeah, exactly. Like you can make a number 2 to your well-selling game that is something new, or you could make this remake to a game that came out 8 years ago that no one asked for.
That we think it's better because it's so good,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's pretty wild.
And it's also like it just like the optics of it, like where it's just like, hey, like this, and this was a huge debate. I think maybe why, like, I mean, it was a huge debate before the game came out, but like a lot of people before Days Gone came out was like, because like at the point that Days Gone came out, like we weren't sure when The Last of Us 2 was coming out, and we had only seen some footage of it, and it was like, oh, okay, The Last of Us 2 takes place in the Pacific Northwest, and it's about zombies. Okay, we got this new game called Days Gone that takes place in the Pacific Northwest, and it's about zombies that we're not going to call zombies, but they are zombies. These games are very similar. I mean, they're not, but like on the surface, they're post-apocalyptic games that take place in heavily wooded areas where you're killing zombies. Like, so on the surface, they're very similar, and it's just again further insult to injury, where it's just like, hey, this zombie apocalyptic game you guys are working on? We're not going to give you a sequel, but you are going to remake another zombie apocalyptic game that we've already made and remastered already. That, again, no one asked for. So take that.
I know you guys probably touched on this, but you know how you and me and Apollo have been. I mean, we've all been complaining about the fact that Resident Evil 4 probably doesn't need a remake.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Well, at least
that's a much older game than The Last of Us.
Right.
And
yeah,
and
exactly.
It still falls along the line our complaint about it's unnecessary. Yeah,
at least before like the other classics that are way harder to play are the other classic Resident Evil games are remade. Because I mean, by that time, let's say that they remade like
it's gonna
Code
need
Veronica
more time,
and Zero, and remade the first one, because that one actually needs a remake at this point. Like by then, it would have been like 25, 27, or like 20 years or so since Resident Evil 4 came out. Like then it's like, okay, like remake it, go ahead, like, and you've learned all the lessons from remaking all the other Resident Evils, so go ahead. But yeah, you're right, it's like, that game is far older than The Last of Us, so
definitely a good example in this. Like,
sorry, Apollo, you're not gonna get Code Veronica.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm the first. Trust me, before even before the Resident Evil 2 remake came out, I was like, I bet you they fuck me on Code Veronica. I fucking bet you. And they did.
Yeah.
Apollo, just show up to their offices and be like, hey guys, can you buy me wine and some flowers before you fucking fuck me in the ass?
Oh man. So I'm finding it like it's since like seeing that kind of like response from like a former developer that is getting miffed by essentially the real problem here. It's not the fans, it's not the developer, it's Sony making these really ridiculous decisions, and they're just gonna, and it sucks because now it's just like developer versus fan, and this kind of shit, like in the discussions, people start bringing up shit like Cyberpunk's, thing, and how people fucking,
Yeah.
have such a bad experience with that, and they'll relate it to the Days Gone situation, and it's just like it's just so sad to see kind of like the that Sony's just sitting back watching these two people blame each other
They,
for
they're
for a
talking-
Well, I
system
mean, that's
that
what they do.
Sony like
the
continues
CEO
to
of Sony,
perpetuate.
right?
Yeah.
The CEO of Sony, probably Tim Sony. I'm gonna call him that.
Tim
It's
Sony.
probably going to just sitting back on his chair, going like,
Yeah, right?
I mean,
feel
he
like-
doesn't care.
Yeah.
Jim Ryan definitely doesn't care.
Yeah.
But the thing is but like again, what I was gonna say before was that like this is the MO of Sony historically. Like they have the quote where they say it every time. There's bad press on them, and they just like, okay, what's Sony gonna do? And everyone's wondering, and they always go back to the same thing where it's like, we don't comment on rumors and speculations, and that's all they say.
Mm.
That's all they say until the dust is settled, and then they can make a decision that hopefully appeals to everyone. So it is unfortunate, and it sucks, but it's not surprising at all. Like
Yeah.
they do this all the time,
Yeah.
and it is really frustrating just to sort of watch these two, the fans and the developers, the two people who should not be fighting and who we don't want to see fighting, and Sony just sort of resting on their laurels in the background,
Yeah.
waiting for the perfect time to strike. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the game had actually financially struggled, like at least it would have brought up the the topic of like the struggle of like the single player games, like the thing that consoles at the beginning of last um generation kept saying that they just wasn't making them enough money, because there is a risk in single player games that if it doesn't sell well enough, well, you've sunk so much so many
Sure.
resources that it can really do my next studio. But in this case, like, it was successful. Like,
yeah,
there's no reason to just throw it under the bus and be like,
Right, and just like
Yeah.
pass it out, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Again, like there's people saying that like that like they have Sony has a reputation too to like really hold to some ridiculous standard, that if it just doesn't hit that, like if it doesn't not
if it's
only
not
make-
Uncharted.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
like it needs to be both profitable and critically amazing.
Sure.
Like they need both. Like if one doesn't match the other, like we're not gonna full risk. And it's just like
yeah. I mean,
that's
yeah,
pretty crazy.
You guys made Knack
It-
2. You can afford more than one they've got.
yeah. That is a good point. That is
my-
a very good point.
That is an extremely good point. Holy shit. When you say it that like that, damn.
Who developed that game? Who developed Knack? I
It
don't
was
even
internally
remember.
from Sony.
Oh, Japan Studio.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Pan Studio developed it.
I'm
Okay.
sorry for those developers.
Yeah,
To throw you under the
Japan
bus. But
Studio.
your game sucked.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's
Fan Studio, you said?
Japan,
Japan
Studio.
Studio.
Oh,
Yeah.
Japan. Why did I hear it different? I don't know why.
What else?
I think the connection's kind of going
I
in
mean,
and
they
out.
made Gravity Rush, and I didn't play that, but
I mean, they've made a
they made some
shit
pretty
ton
good
of stuff. Yeah.
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 It was also did. Yeah, am I seeing this correctly? They did Last Guardian.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah. There's different like sub studios that work under them as well. So,
Japan
yeah.
Studio. Yeah.
Oh, Bloodborne. Somehow. They were
Bloodborne?
involved somehow.
I mean, maybe they
It might have been in a
lent some-
support capacity, maybe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
maybe.
gonna say, 'cause that's definitely that's definitely from software game.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like that's why
Yeah.
it's kind of so developer. Yeah, it's from software, but I guess they were supporting them. Cause according, well, I mean, sometimes Wikipedia is not correct, so grain of salt.
Wikipedia is always correct.
Yeah,
That's why I always put it in my sources. That's cool.
Oh, interesting. They did a Playroom, huh? Astro's Playroom for PS5.
But yeah,
Clearly, they have some money to throw around. I mean, they're also working on a sequel for PSVR, which had a modest success.
Wait, am I
I mean, it might be what you were saying, Sean. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just their expectations, because, like, for PSVR, it is, like, their expectations were that they would sell, a couple million, and they ended up selling like 5 or 6 million of those. So it was ahead of their expectations, even if the sales weren't like amazing. So yeah, I mean, it might just be that they had a bar that Days Gone needed to hit critically, that it just didn't hit.
Right, it's the whole idea that Jim Sterling keeps saying, right? They're not satisfied with making some of the money. They want
they have to make all of it. Right, because it wasn't Last of Us, it wasn't Spider-Man, it wasn't Uncharted, or it wasn't these games that do very well critically and commercially, and I don't know, that could have been it. Yeah. Still, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's just sad, like.
I mean, again, I hope that they are still making a sequel, but it's just not what they had pitched originally.
Okay, yeah, that's true too. Like, maybe even like it's not even
because I mean, because like I was saying, like they were pitching something that was more co-op and multiplayer and shared world focused, and from first parties for Sony's first party stable, like that's not what they do. They do third person single player games. Like that's what they do. I do think they need to start diversifying a bit. They could use some like proprietary multiplayer stuff for sure, but yeah, it could just be like, oh, you want this co-op thing? No, like maybe you can have a mode, maybe, but like the main game needs to be this same formula of it being just single player and third person, and have a gruff protagonist that has emotional issues. Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean that
we'll
just
see.
Wanted to bring that up. Like.
Oh yeah.
Like, because like this it struck kind of a chord of like how the interactions are with all these moving parts, and you could draw comparisons to like how Sony is reacting to the fact that people want the PS3 and Vita store open, and we just discussed how they responded, but we don't know to what extent of like that response. Again, I don't know for sure if that still screws over the independent developers, but they're appeasing the fan. It feels like a play, doesn't it? Like, I just feel like it's a play. Like, they're playing the hand of like, hey, we'll screw over the developers, but we'll appease the fans because that's what counts there, right? So like, no one's gonna hear about the developers unless somebody totally signals it to a point where everybody starts becoming viral. But I don't know. Again, yes, maybe speculative, all that stuff. I just feel like there's like lately, because of how things are going with like game development, it's like there's a lot of like weird kind of like, I don't know, it's just like it seems so poisonous to have the fan get so riled up that they're attacking the wrong person, and then the developer also just dealing with that, and then they're reacting in that way when really it's the system that's the problem. I mean, we even talked about how Sony doesn't really do quality control. So like when the games, like you got to hit that deadline, no matter how shitty that launch is, like no how buggy is shit. Oh, guess what? But we're going to judge you based on the critical acclaim. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, how am I going to do that? Like, if it's buggy as shit, it of course is going to tank for the reviews. And you're judging me by that. Like, what do you, what? Like, so you're putting me in a catch-22. Like, I'm seriously screwed. Like, no matter what.
Yeah, and I mean, it's clearly the backlash, like you said. Like, nobody complains that, Life of Black Tiger is on the PlayStation Store.
Right, yeah.
Oh, God.
You're welcome for reminding you of that game.
I mean, that's the word I was.
Word game in a very liberal way.
Still thinking. You just said it out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but
like, it feels. It really does feel like that. Like, it really feels like that when it comes down to like those decision making, and then they just, I don't know. There's got to be somebody in Sony that realizes what they're doing. Like to putting that kind of thing down on developers. Like it's gonna fuck them.
Yeah.
review
Oh,
wise.
oh yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, anyways, yeah. That's all I wanted to bring up, like really like kind of like think about. We could always go further into detail at some other time, but I don't know if we have. I mean, we could go on forever, but we can.
Look,
I
if
think this
somebody
is
has
good.
anything left to say it now, or forever hold your peace.
I think part of it is that Sony wants to, like, game development has gotten very expensive, and Sony is in a position where almost every game that they are going to fund is going to be astronomically expensive in terms of the teams they have to hire. That's
Mm,
why we have the $70 price tag on games now. So, in a sense, I think they're just trying to trim the fat because they don't
yeah.
want any extra titles, and that, like, it at a distance, it does seem like focusing on only blockbusters is just a short-sighted idea and something that doesn't seem to value the players wanting something new. Like, they only want big smash hit
Mm,
AAA titles, but they don't realize that they built the PlayStation's legacy on smaller titles until they started becoming a force. Like, we wouldn't have Polyphony Digital if we didn't have Motor Tune on the PS1. Like, that was a very cartoony Mario Kart esque game, but the team that worked on it ended up doing Gran Turismo. We wouldn't have Crash Bandicoot,
mm,
which started as first party Sony, but then the team Naughty Dog ended up working on other things like Jack and fucking like Uncharted. Like, they stretched out whatever kind of technology the PS2 and PS3 had and moved forward. They became a force. You know, everything started off small until they turned into these big things. But Sony's now forgetting that little nuance that made their successes of what they are today. Everything
mm,
started off small, even for them, when they were just breaking into game console development. And now they're like too big for their own britches, and they're like forgetting their humble beginnings is what it looks like. But from Sony's
Yeah.
perspective, it's just that they want to save money. They don't want to waste money on small projects. They don't want to like disappoint fans who might be looking forward to those AAA titles. Are like, okay, we want to be more serviceable to you, but also it's more convenient for us because we don't have to spend as much money on your clap hands develop golf games or your ape escapes or anything like that. But that's still a bad move because it's like, look, Sony, when you went to this generation, we kind of expected you to bring not necessarily everything, but take some of your winners and bring them to PS5. This
mm.
is a chance for you to do something where you bring the DNA of Sony PlayStation to the current generation, but it looks like you're trying to rewrite your own history.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I mean, and the ironic thing about what you were saying is that, like, how they started off with like smaller things that, and then when they ballooned, that sort of lost that. Like, is that like at the end of the PS3 generation and for I'd say the first half of the PS4 generation, when the PS4 was selling the most, like they were really, really, really promoting indie games alongside those AAA games. It's like, so when they were the most successful like than they've ever been since PS2 sold 150 million units, like that was when they were promoting the highest diversity of different games, of small games and big games. And then like halfway through the PS4 generation, they started slowly doing that less and promoting less indie games until by the end of the PS4 generation and the beginning of the PS5 generation, they were barely doing that at all. And yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing. The other side of the coin is that if you fuck over these small developers, guess where they're going to go?
right.
Your competitors
Exactly.
who they can easily afford way more than you can. And they're going to get not only that goodwill from the audience and from those developers, but they're going to have that diverse portfolio that a lot of your fans have been wanting for years. They're going to have in a few years when those big studios that you bought have their games out, they're going to have Elder Scrolls and Fallout and all these giant games coming out, and they're going to have these indie games coming out. So they're going to have, again, everything. So if that is their play, it's a bad play. It's again a short-sighted play, and they're not seeing the long-term consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, once you start losing that variety, it's just, from the player base, it just becomes you're just not gonna have enough, games to play. You're just gonna saturate the market with just one specific thing.
I mean, and that's a huge criticism of the first party studio stable that Sony has, right? Is that their games are great, and you have Uncharted, and you have Last of Us, and you have God of War, and all of these things, but they're all exactly what I was saying before: third person, gruff protagonist, action adventure games. Like they're all that's what they are. Like they very rarely go out of that. I think diversity is key in games for your portfolio. So again, you're feeding. Again, I almost feel like Microsoft is they're looking at this and they're like, perfect. They're doing exactly what we wanted them to. Like they're just playing into our hands.
Yes,
more,
excellent.
You activated my trap car.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, yeah, it's like concentrating on that bottom line, right?
Like everybody is looking at Sony and being like, "What are you doing?" And they just don't seem to realize, like they're just in their own little bubble, like we're the best, we got nothing to worry about, and it's just like I can't imagine Microsoft is not going.
I'm gonna come out with something great. Just wait.
I mean, they just had the fiasco. They just had the fiasco with the whole MLB exclusivity thing. Right, which is like this huge thing where like Sony had the exclusive rights to the MLB franchise for years, and even though I don't think any of us are into that, like that's a system seller. Like people love those games and they buy them like gangbusters every single year, the same way they buy Call of Duty and stuff. So when Sony and again, this just shows their own incompetence. Sony lost the exclusivity, and everybody was assuming like, okay, like maybe their license ran out, maybe something, but it turns out it was the MLB who actually decided to go over to Xbox. And the reason that they were even able to do that, because Sony literally just renewed their license with them, like I think in 2019. So like everybody was like, well, how did they do that? And apparently Sony missed something in the bylines of their contract with them. And Microsoft's lawyers found them, and they found that there was a loophole, and they're like, "Hey, we can just as long as we sell this on Game Pass for free, we can totally take this." And they did. And so now you have people who literally bought PS5s for MLB, and they're like, it's exactly what I said before, where it's like, I could either buy this at $70 here, or I could get this for free on the Xbox I already own. Which one? And it's just totally,
what
It's like, good job, Sony. Like, well done. You've again showed your complete ineptitude in anything business. Cocky Sony strikes again.
That's fucking
well done.
Brilliant of Microsoft. So what you're saying is, if we don't sell it, we can still, have it in a platform.
Exactly. Really, as long as we quote unquote sell it for free, which is what Game Pass is, then it's on then we can have it on our system without any rerepercussions, without any legal ramifications at all.
Is it because it's free or because it's on Game Pass?
It's because it's free. Like basically because Game Pass is, you pay like a certain amount, but because you get the game for free after you pay that certain amount, that's why it's able to be on there. So in other words, you can't buy MLB on the Microsoft Store. You can't. But if you have Game Pass, you can get it.
That's
for free.
So crazy.
Yeah,
like that's
it's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Yeah,
because like
it's a fucking magic trick.
That is seriously such a magic trick right there. Just like carpet under, like just being pulled right under you. Like like it's like.
I mean, it made Sony look like fools completely. It's brilliant. Like I love it.
You know that whatever executive pitched that to Xbox was like, so if we don't
Man.
charge for it, we can have it on our platform. Totally got a huge bonus.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
That
yeah.
person,
Wh-
that
Whatever
He got a
lawyer,
bonus, and
whatever
everybody
lawyer
got money.
found that, they're sitting pretty on some beach somewhere.
He got a bonus.
Yeah.
Everybody in that meeting got a boner. Everybody won.
That's actually that's a good that's some good nugget right there in terms of like
Yeah.
really reading between the lines, you know.
Like, and the thing is, whatever on the flip side, whatever lawyer missed that has been fired and destroyed by Sony. Like, they'll never work again.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Jeez Louise. That's insane, dude.
Shit.
Damn.
Yes, dude.
That's some interesting news. But okay. I mean,
That's a good place to leave it with Sony being
Yeah.
destroyed.
remember y'all, read between the lines.
Exactly.
Or every you know what? Like every wordage and sentence really does count. Like
Fucking
Don't get
slam
too
dunk.
big for your bridges. Everybody needs to know how to read in your company. Like,
So-
everyone needs to be able to
Yeah, like,
read
it's-
complete sentences.
yeah, it's like it's wild to think that one like reinterpretation of a sentence just
Yeah.
lost them billions.
I mean,
You could say with
it's
that
sort of
slam dunk,
Fucking
huh?
crazy.
I mean, it's similar to that Alien Colonial Marines thing where it's like where the game was like infamously bugged, and then like somebody just realized it was this one little mistake in the code, and they fixed it, and now the game is like actually playable and way better. But years after the fact, so they'll never make any money from it. It's just like, man, like
Right.
this small oversight that you
Right,
never thought would come back to bites you in the hardest way.
Right. Ah, God. Damn. Yep, that's
Wow.
why you pay people the big bucks to really read them details, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
really crazy.
I mean, you don't know. Like, it could have been some fucking Milton style fucking lawyer who is disgruntled and be like, "Fuck you, Sony, I'll get you." And this is their payback. Who
so
knows?
it's the exact opposite. So it's like intentional, an intentional loophole that hey, what if that's the guy that went to Microsoft and actually was like, hey, I'm
Oh.
gonna give me the money. I'm gonna give you a secret that you can take advantage of. That's gonna make you billions.
That's some corporate espionage shit where it's just like
Dude.
on a level where they need to make a movie about that. I would
Yeah,
love to
I
see
would
the
love to
actual
see
story
that.
behind that.
Right. That's actually, man, that really is some crazy espionage. Like, I always
Yeah.
think about, like, when people talk about it, I'm like, how? How is this? Like, how do you come up with something wild? Like, it's so, like, for me, I'm pigeon brain. I don't understand this. I don't understand. What do you mean, fucking, like, corporate espionage? What is that? Like,
Yeah.
but that, like, alone, thinking about that makes me think, like, fuck, man, that's fucking insane. That's fucking insane. Insane. And with that, we will end today's show with my pigeon brain. Thank you for listening to our rants and our wild off-the-cuff thing. I definitely enjoyed it. I like how we went from... I mean, this was probably really interesting and one of the most interesting topics that we went over in a while. That was like, filled with like interesting nuggets that I didn't know about, and then like, I hope somebody learned from it too. Yeah, it was definitely off the cuff, and but it was definitely inspired from things like from original like topics. So we went around the world and we came back. I hope you enjoyed the ride, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Peace.